Welcome to Classes and Objects. Now this is going to be a two-part video, at least two parts. We're going to first of all talk about what classes are, how we use those to create objects, and then we're going to jump out into Visual Studio and build a very simple example of creating a class and then using that class to instantiate an object. Now classes are the blueprints for our objects. When we want to add a real-world object to an application and then utilize that object, we do that by building a class. So the class is what we use to create or instantiate our objects. Now just like in real life, we can create multiple unique objects from a single blueprint. So we have a blueprint of a house. Notice we can use that same blueprint to build multiple different styles of houses with different elevations, little different styles. And by using different materials or properties, colors, materials on the outside, we can make very different looking houses from that single blueprint. But each one of these houses is a unique, totally separate object that came from that single blueprint. Well, we can do the same thing with a class in our code. We code up a class and then we use that class as the blueprint to create multiple objects. And so we can build a class and we can put code in here that tells us what these objects should be able to do, what properties they can have. We'll talk about all that functionality later on in the course. But we're going to build a class and then we're going to instantiate or create objects in memory out there from that particular class. Now, class determines the properties and the functionalities or the methods an object will have, and an object created from a class has a unique state due to the properties that it contains and the various functionalities it can execute. Keep in mind, you and I are both part of a class. We're both part of what could be called the human class. Now, even though we're both humans, we have different properties or different states. We probably have different heights, different weights. We may have different nationalities, may have different hair color, eye color, all those sorts of things. But while we're all part of the human class, and wouldn't it be a better world if we all really believed that? But we're all part of the human class, but we all have different properties that makes us unique out there in the class. Now, when we create an object based on a class, we are said to instantiate an object, or we are instantiating an object. We're creating an object in memory based on that class. Now, let's take a look at an example. Let's start building an example for creating a single class and then ultimately instantiate multiple objects from that class. So let's go open Visual Studio. I'll click on Start. I will go to my All Programs, and I will go to Visual Studio 2012, and I will open Visual Studio 2012. And you notice it's going to take it just a moment to open up the trial version, and I am going to start or create a new project. So I will click on New Project. I'll leave it on Windows Forms application. Notice I'm on Visual C#. I'm going to change the name here to Classes and Objects. Okay, notice this is going to create a directory for this solution at this location right here. Okay, so if I ever want to see this, I can go to that location and see it. But for now, I'll just click OK and let it build it. Now it's going to take it just a moment to build this. And what's going to happen here is going to drop us to a form. We're going to put a couple of buttons on the form. Then we're going to start coding. So I'm going to have the toolbox pop out here. And I'll click on Toolbox, and I'm going to pin this thing out here. And I'm just going to grab a couple of buttons. Now, the first time you open that, it may take it a moment or two to populate these buttons. So notice I'm going to drag two buttons on, and I will, what I did there, notice this one was highlighted. I hold down the Shift, click the other one, and now I'm going to make them both a lot wider. Okay, then I can reposition them and then click anywhere to take them off. Now I'm going to click on button 1, go into Properties, and on the text property, I'm going to say Create Object 1. And then on button 2, I'm going to go to the text property and create Object 2. Okay, now what I need to do here is when I click on Object 1 in code, I want to instantiate an object from a class. Well, I don't have that class, so I'm going to go add it. Now, to make this a little easier for you to understand, I'm going to make that go away, and I'm going to go over here to the Classes and Objects project. I'm going to right click and I'm going to add a new item. And notice it's got class right here. So I'll just choose that. And I'm going to add a new class. And here's my new add item window class. And it's going to be called class 1. We'll just leave it as class 1. We will add it. And notice right there it is. It added class 1. It also added it over here for the code. And it gave me a little tab up here. There is my form code. There's my design for the form. And here is my class file. Okay. Now, what do I want to do in my class? I want every object that's created from this class to have a method, okay? So I'm going to create a method. I'm going to say public void do this, and that will be my method. All right, and then I'm going to create the functionality for my method, okay? And I'm going to do a message box. System.windows .forms .messagebox .show, and this is going to say class 1 was used to do this. And if I could type and talk, it would be great, wouldn't it? Okay, and so there we go. There is the first method. Okay, I'm going to stop right here. This will be the end of part 1. Join me in part 2, and we will continue with our coding.